Good morning, everyone. It is Robert, and I am here with you on Facebook, on Zoom, on YouTube. We're everywhere. Boy, I'll tell you, we got it all going on today. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Yeah, good.
Picture.
Yeah, good deal. All right. Well, we got a bunch of you in here in the Zoom room, and it looks like the Facebook room is starting to load up as well. Let me go ahead and get that started here. That's that. Ooh, too far, too fast. There we go. We'll get that going there. And woohoo! So we're going to be talking today about Docusign. It is the Docusign Introduction class, and that's going to be a lot of fun because we're going to start from the beginning. We're going to go over all the best practices, getting yourself set up in Docusign, and getting yourself set up so that you can work easy. I think that's the whole theme of what I try to do here is make it so that you guys can work easy. And I'm going to go ahead and we got, if anybody wants to join in the conversation, for now, go ahead and mute yourself. And then if you want to ask a question or something like that, feel free to unmute. But for now, go ahead and mute yourself and I'll get you started here. We're going to go ahead and start off by sharing the screen here, and we're going to take a look at what we got. So we'll share.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, son of a bitch is right. That's exactly how I feel. Let me go ahead and there we go. There we got that one. All right, we'll mute this. There we go. We're looking good. All right. So again, you don't have to keep yourself on mute. If you have a question, by all means, feel free to unmute yourself if you do have a question. But for now, we'll go ahead and leave it like that. Okay. So we're going to start off as we always do in these classes. First of all, I'm going to ask you a couple questions since we have a good set of people here. How many of you are currently, by show of hands here, how many of you are using Docusign in Command as your regular tool and not using .loop or any other tool? So we got a couple of you there. All right, good. And for those of you who are not using .loop, are you using Docusign? Sorry, are you using .loop? And I ask that because some agents come from different other resources and different tools. So if you're using .loop, let me know that as well. We do use Docusign here at Keller Williams, and that does not prohibit you from using .loop, but we don't actually do any training classes on .loop. You can go to the .loop sites. .loop's main site, and you can get information there. But we focus on Docusign here because it's part of the Keller Williams integrations. It's actually kind of pre-built into the system. And for those of you who are just joining us, if you are just joining us as an agent, I will be working with you to get you set up on Docusign inside of your command system. And I'm going to start by showing you that you don't have to do this by yourself. I will work with you. But I just want to show you that when we go into command here, and can everybody see my screen? It looks like everybody's good on the screen there. When you first log into command, of course, you're going to end up on this home page here. What I'm going to do is, because this is a basic Docusign class and introduction, I'm actually going to show you how we get it all connected and how it all works. So to connect Docusign into your system, when you're inside of command, you would go up to your profile icon up here on the top right, and you'd go down to settings. Now, I will qualify this. You don't have to play along with me at home. For most of you, I know that you're in the room here. You're already set up. If you are not already set up, I will work with you to get this set up. So we went to the profile icon, we go to settings, and you can see here on the what we call the integrations page, we integrate a lot of different third-party programs into command, and Docusign is one of them. Now, Docusign, when you first go in here, may not say that it's connected. It may say connect to Docusign. And if that's the case, you will want to use your KW email and click that connect button. It's actually a two-part connection. The first part, you're actually creating the Docusign account. So you would end up going to the Docusign interface and creating that account. If you used your KW email, or more specifically, the email that Brittany Goodale set you up on when she got your licensing all together, if you use that email, then you're going to automatically have a Docusign account. And I say this because a lot of people say, well, I want to use my other email, whatever that ends up being. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to use another email, because Brittany will have hooked you up on a specific email into our system, and things like Docusign and other integrations will use that. If you should by chance need to use another email, contact Brittany and let her know so that she can get you set up with that secondary email. But once you set up that Docusign account, that's part one. Part two is Docusign is going to send you an authorization email, authentication email, and that email will go to your Gmail account that is the same one that you just used to sign up, which is your KW account. And then you'll authenticate and you'll come back to this page. So you went over to Docusign, you created the account, you'll come back here and it will authenticate you and put you into the system. Now, when you do that, just so you know, you're going to be using the connection that you've just established. And you can see here, mine is connected to Docusign. I'm going to start off by giving you the number one tip to understand how the integration works. You will never need to create a Docusign room or transaction or whatever you want to call it in Docusign. You will never need to create that in Docusign outside of Command. By connecting these two tools here, by connecting Docusign to Command, then when you go to create an opportunity for a contact and you create that opportunity, you will create the room in Docusign from within Command. And I'm going to show you that today. And this is one of the most glitchy parts of when people are just starting to use Command and Docusign together. And for that matter, .loop as well, but we're focusing on Docusign here. The good news is, you guys, once this connection is established, all of your Docusign rooms are created from here in Command. And that connection makes it easy for you to move documents back and forth between Command and Docusign. Okay, so you do see here that I have .loop as well. Generally, the same rules apply and the same process applies. If you should by chance need .loop connected, reach out to me because there's a couple of extra steps that I have to go through to make sure you get the proper connection. All right, now let's take a look at getting to Docusign. Now, I'm going to break away from Command here for a moment, and I want to show you the two ways. Well, I guess I'm going to show you a total of 3 ways that you can access Docusign. To be clear, the first 2 ways that I show you, you really don't need to use if you're running your transaction as I show you through Command. However, I like to show you this because there may be a time when you need to jump into Docusign and you're in a hurry and you've already connected the room to the transaction in Command. You're good, but you just need to jump into Command. A lot of people jump into Docusign. A lot of people will go up to the address bar and they'll type in docusign.com. So let's go and do that and see what happens. So docusign.com. I'll just do that and hit enter. So everything looks good. It took me to the Docusign website here, but there's something that's going to happen when you use the login button, which by the way, is about as far up in the upper right-hand corner as you can possibly get. When you click that button up here to log in, everybody's looking around like, where is the login button? It's way, way up at the top. When you click that login button, it's going to take you to the login screen here. And you can see here's pulling my email. And if it doesn't auto-populate with your email, the first question will be, what's your email? And then when you click that, it'll take you to your password screen and then you'll log in there. So once you get into Docusign, you'll notice here that it's actually not Docusign Rooms. It's Docusign e-signature. So what does that mean? Why does that even have to be discussed? Well, Docusign is a public company and they work with electronic signatures. This is the normal people's homepage for e-signature. Anybody can get one of these accounts. Anybody can have a Docusign account. Real estate agents, however, we use a different part of Docusign. And that different part is called Docusign Rooms. And the Rooms portion of it is specifically designed for real estate transactions. And when we get into this, you're going to see that. So we don't actually use e-signature on a regular basis because it doesn't have the real estate tools that we need. So I just showed you that when you go to docusign.com, you end up logging in and it takes you to e-signature. Now, to be clear, e-signature is used by real estate agents when you're doing what we call in-person signing, where you take a computer to someone's house and you set it up so that when you turn the computer around and face them, they're signing as if they had used an email and used their own computer. So you can actually do this cool thing called in-person signing. Now, we use e-signature for the second half of that. But what we use most of the time is Docusign Rooms. So the other way to get into Docusign Rooms is rooms.docusign.com. So docusign.com takes you to e-signature. Rooms.docusign takes you to the Rooms portion. Either way, if you went to e-signature first, you can see down at the bottom of the screen here on the left-hand side, there is a Docusign Rooms switch button. So we can actually click this to join the Rooms side, or you can go up to your profile icon in the upper right and you can switch to Rooms. Either way, you're going to end up in the real estate side. So give it a second here and it's going to load. And this is your KW Rooms for Docusign tool. So you can see here, Robert Vincent at Kw Clm, and this is what you will use. Having said all of that, to avoid any of that, log into Command first. Log into Command, and now I'm going to show you how we can get to that same section, but we're going to do it from within Command. And I'm going to be pretty bold here. I'm going to say the right way. And the reason we call it the right way is because it's the best way for you guys to do your connections and your documents. Now, I do see Richard. It looks like you said you do not see your Command Connect apps. So are you talking about when you go to the profile icon in the top right, you don't see settings, or when you go to settings, you don't see Docusign? And I'll let you type an answer in there because it looks like you're not using your video and you're muted. So go ahead and type in there more specifically. I do not see on my command the Connect apps. So okay, not quite sure. Well, we'll have to explore. All I see now is customize. So you're on the home screen. So you're on the home screen here, which says customize home. But if you go up above that to where your profile icon is, if you click your profile icon and click settings, that will take you to the screen for the apps connections. That's how you get there. Okay. All right. So let's go to Docusign, but we're going to go the right way. So if you have a pen and paper, I want you to write this down. By the way, this training class is being recorded. Your faces are not being recorded, quite frankly. The ones that are in the chat areas, that's all being recorded. But for those of you on YouTube, those of you on Facebook, and those of you on the Zoom, this is going to be in the YouTube live sections as well as on our kwclmtraining.com. So if you miss any of the steps, you can always watch this later. And of course, you can reach out to me with any questions. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go step by step, and we're going to connect to Docusign using the tools that we have. Now, if you are not already connected to Docusign, we'll still need to do some work separately with you, but we're going to make some assumptions here that we're connected. So to do it, we're going to, number one, we always go to the contact that we're going to be using as our primary designated signer. What does that mean? Robert, what the hell are you talking about? So every contract that you put out there and have signed was going to have at least one signature by someone. That's your primary signer. The primary signer is the person who's going to be signing shall we say first? And I don't necessarily mean in physical order of pass it to this person first and pass it to this person, but it's the primary signer who's going to be responsible for checking the boxes, filling in the spaces, and that person's going to do the heavy lifting on the contract. If there are more than one people on the contract, you have your primary signer and you have your secondary signer. And the secondary signer is not responsible for all the check marks and all of the boxes. They're responsible for the signature to agree to what the primary has put on the document. So it doesn't matter what party is primary or secondary, and it actually doesn't even matter which one of those is in which slot. But just understand that the first person on the contract is going to be the one who's assigned all of the spaces to put those fill-ins, all right? So what that means is if you've got, a husband and wife team and the wife is the one who's going to be doing all the document filling out and you want that person to do it, just make sure you put that first person first. And that starts here. So when we're in the contact area, if we're going to generate an opportunity, which is going to connect to Docusign. So we're getting to the Docusign part. We're going to generate that opportunity. We want to use the primary contact as the source of the opportunity. So we're going to look up a contact here. And my system is running really weird today. So we're going to look up a contact, and we have this contact, Jackie Astudo. She's going to be the primary on the contract that we're about to create. To do so, I'm going to open her contact information. If this contact does not exist in your database, you will have to create them first. Creating them first, if I go back one page to the contact screen, you can click the Add Contact button on the contact screen, and that will create a new contact. After that contact has been created, and I'm going to skip over the whole creation process of that for a moment. After that contact is created, you'll be taken to the new page that is the contact record. It's the entry in the database. The more information you have about the contact on the left side of this page, the easier Docusign is going to be, because it's going to take the phone number. It's going to take the email. It's going to take the information about this contact and use this information in Docusign. If you omit this information here, you're just going to have to fill it out again later. And if you omit it here and you never fill it out, then you don't even have it here and you've got it other places. But if you start here, it will be automatically passed to everywhere down the line. One time, everybody gets it. Once you have that contact information here, to create the actual opportunity from the contact, we go to the Opportunities tab on what we call the activity or the timeline. In the Opportunities section, you can see that I've created a few dozen opportunities for this person. And this is awesome because this means I can now see all of the opportunities that I've ever created for this person. I can see all the activity that I've ever done with this person. So I don't have to worry about looking into the opportunities applet or the opportunities area of command to find something for Jackie. If I just go to Jackie and look at the opportunities, I'm going to see everything. I won't have to filter, nothing. It's all there. To create a new opportunity, we always start here and we go to the Create Opportunity button. When we click the Create Opportunity button, we're given the opportunity dialog. Initially, people always say, well, I'll just quickly fill this out and move on so that I can get my work done. If you take your time here, Docusign will get all the information from this and it will fill it in for you everywhere it needs to be filled in. So once again, take your time. The opportunity type, I'll choose a listing type. When I do that, notice that I get an opportunity name automatically populating with the Jackie Astudo as the name of the contact and the listing as the type of contact. Compliance here at Keller Williams requires you to have a very specific naming convention for your opportunities. And they are very simply who, what, and where. And the where is the property address. Now, you do not need to put in the zip code, but you do need the property address. This is required because not only is this going to help you find it later, it's going to help compliance identify this when they're working with it. And the other extremely important thing to note is this name that we create here is going to be the name of the Docusign room that we create. Take a look again. Who, what, where. Get those three things in there, and I guarantee you compliance will be easier. Your life in general will be easier. Okay. Now, I mentioned that we have our primary signer, which is Jackie Astuto. That was already filled out because we initiated the opportunity from Jackie Astuto. If we have a co-seller and the co-seller is related or not to Jackie Astuto, we can bring that co-seller into the opportunity here. And when Docusign gets this information, it's going to have the client as the primary, and it's going to have the co-seller as the secondary, and it's going to identify those two people so that now inside of Docusign, everything's going to line up. So I'm going to go ahead and search for John Morgan here, who I happen to know is a relationship to Jackie Astuto. Now that I have both of those names here, Docusign is going to know who they are, and I'm going to introduce you to a term now. This is called roles. So Jackie is playing the role of seller 1, and John Morgan is playing the role of seller 2. Now, the names in this dialogue are client and co-seller, but the signing purposes are seller 1 and seller 2. And by identifying those two people now, and again, it doesn't have to be two people, it could be just one, it doesn't matter. By identifying those people now, when we use Docusign forms, Docusign's going to know who is supposed to go where on the document. It's going to save you a bunch of time. Now, additional information down here. If you have a listing price, put it in there. If you don't have a listing price, then you can leave it blank. I would guess that if you're at this stage of creating an opportunity, you have a general idea, which is why it's called estimated. And I would guess that you also have an estimated closing date, even if this opportunity is in the early stages and you're just getting started talking to someone and they're like, yeah, probably, maybe 2 or 3 months down the line, we're looking at moving. Fine. Put 3 months in the estimated closing date or 4 months in the closing date. This is estimated, but it keeps you in the loop and it keeps command tracking what's going on when. All right, the last required piece of information here is the commission rate. And just quite simply, this is the commission rate for your side of the deal. Remember, an opportunity can only be one side of the deal. If you're playing dual agent, you'll need to create 2 opportunities. And if you want more information on that, we have a little course on that inside of the Kw Clm Training portal. But for right now, just know that this is one side of the deal, the commission rate. So we'll go ahead and create this, and we have an opportunity. All of that. Now you're thinking to yourself, Robert, I thought this was a Docusign class. Everything that I just showed you there is going to make Docusign work for you. If you skip any of these steps, you're just going to be doing double data entry or not being able to find things. And I'm going to prove that to you by moving forward and opening the opportunity. So I'll click on the opportunity in my new opportunities list there. And when I do that, it's going to take me to the opportunity details page. So we have here at the top of the page, we have the name of the opportunity, who, what, and where. That is also here shown in the opportunity name, who, what, and where. But it is only showing the address in the name of the opportunity. It's not pulling anything from the MLS here. We didn't specify what's the MLS number. We didn't do any of that. So in order to move forward with, I'm going to be very careful with this so you understand me, a listing that is in the MLS. So if the listing that we're going to be working on now is already in the MLS, you can click the Select from Listings button. And I'm going to do that in a moment. If the listing that you're working on is not in the MLS, then you don't have an MLS number and you can't click this because it doesn't exist in the MLS. That's not to be confused with maybe the property was sold a few years ago and there's an old MLS number. We're talking about your MLS number for this transaction. If it's not in the MLS yet, you can't click that, but you need the address to do the paperwork. And that's where the property comes in over on the right-hand side. So quite simply, if the property is not in the MLS, you click the property icon and search for the physical address. So if we went in here, 123 Main Street, and we saw Epping, New Hampshire, if I chose this, that's just a property address. There's nothing about an MLS here. All right. Now, if I have it in the MLS and I want the MLS data, we click on Select from Listings. And when we do a search here, and I'll search for all listings because I'm not a real estate agent. So I do a search here for 123 Main Street in Epping. This will show me the MLS details, including, of course, the MLS number. Now, this is not my MLS, but this is an MLS listing, which I can select now, and I can put it in, and it loads up the address, it loads up the MLS data, the pricing, it loads up the property address, and everything. Why is this important? Docusign needs it. And when I say Docusign needs it, I want to show you something here. I'm going to go to answers.kw.com, which is our absolute database of knowledge here. This is the answers system for Keller Williams. If you have any question about any of the tech, answers.kw.com. And I'm going to type in here, sync Docusign. Okay. Just 2 words. And it brings up sync opportunity details with the connected Docusign room or .loop. Very important. So in here, why I bring this up is because everybody always asks, well, Robert, what is the information that Command and KW send to the Docusign room or the .loop? And how do I make sure that I have all that information? It's this article. So I'm going to copy the link for this and I'm going to put it in the chat for you guys in Zoom. And I am also going to put it on Facebook in a moment. I'll put it on Facebook. This shows you that from the KW White Pages profile, this is your KW profile with your quid ID number. When you went into mykw.kw.com, it's pulling all of your agent information. That's what gets transferred to Docusign. From the opportunity, and I want to read this in a different way, if you have properly attached that listing to the opportunity, and that's what I showed you about clicking that select from listings button. If you've properly done that, then all of this information gets transferred to Docusign. If you didn't do that, all you're going to get is a property address that is literally just a Google address, and that's not going to help you. And if you don't even do that, you're going to have to manually enter the information in Docusign. We don't want to do that. And number 3, the opportunity offers details. So this is something that happens later in the transaction. And if you keep on syncing your transaction, you will send seller 1, seller 2, buyer 1, buyer 2, expected close date, actual close date, and closing price. All of that information will automatically be going to Docusign if you do the steps that I've shown you here. That's a lot. You put that all together, and all we really had to do was make sure that the details page of the Docusign or the command opportunity was good. So a little pause there before I go on to the next steps, because what we did is we made sure we had a contact, we created the opportunity, and we did the opportunity details. All of it in order to get to Docusign. Are there any questions on the stuff that we've covered so far? And that applies to Facebook as well. You guys are with me? All right, nothing? No questions. So I guess nobody's ever going to reach out to me with any questions in the future going forward. Wednesday's never going to have a question for me. Kai's never going to ask me another question, right? Not a single thing.
Not a single thing.
Wow.
Well, something not related, but yeah.
Well, my job here is done. I'll see you guys later.
Something on offers and commissions, but we're not on that today.
Okay, no, seriously, you can always reach out to me. So here's the deal. Now that this is all ready to go, we can finally get one step closer to Docusign. And that is on the Documents tab of the opportunity. So we went from Details, we'll come over here to the right, and we'll get to the Documents tab. The information we select here is also going to put information into Docusign. So when we choose the checklist, what we mean by this is every transaction requires a specific set of documents: required, conditional, and optional. This checklist brings those documents, not the documents themselves. To be clear, it's the checklist of documents, not the actual documents. So when we bring in this case, a New Hampshire, which is the where, and it's a listing, which is the what, and the checklist is going to load. So it's a listing for New Hampshire checklist. And by selecting that, we get 3 folders: listed, under contract, and closed. Each folder has its own required documents and its own conditionals and its own optionals. When we look at the listed folder, we see that there are a bunch of documents listed here that have a little DS next to them. Now, for those of you who did not do this in the old days, and by the old days, I mean 6 months ago, when we would create a checklist, it would tell you what documents you needed to bring into Docusign, but it wouldn't actually bring them into Docusign. We've now made it so that these required documents, when you choose this checklist, will automatically load those documents into Docusign so you don't have to go fishing for them. That does not include conditionals or optionals, but the required documents are in fact loaded. And you might be looking at this right now with square in the face and you're saying, well, Robert, this says required, this says required, and this says required, but they do not have the DS. Well, the property card is not a document. It's something that you get outside of command. The tax bill is not something Docusign is going to have, and the map is not. So we're talking about signable forms that you need to get filled out. Those will load, not the current deed, because you got to go get that. Okay, so knowing that, we now have the checklist. We now know everything's ready to go. And I could stop right here, you guys, at 33 minutes into this conversation and say that's the basics. Because everything that I've done right now is the most important part of Docusign. And we haven't even opened it up yet. Because if we've done everything here, when I click this button, this is the Start a Transaction button, which is, by the way, one of the most requested things that I get is, Robert, where do I start the transaction in Docusign? How do I create a Docusign room? It's on the Documents tab. After you've loaded the checklist, after you've done all the details, there will be this button over here that says Start a Transaction. Now, in my case, I have both Docusign and .loop connected. And when I click that button, no matter where I click on that button, it gives me a choice of both. In my case, that's a little different from most of you. You will most likely not need 2 signing tools. It's not a terrible thing if you have both. I think that the worst part of it is trying to remember how to use each one of them. But for new agents or for people that are just getting started that have not used different ones, just stay with Docusign, stay with me, and we'll get you to be pros in this. So I'll choose Docusign. Now, when I choose it, it's going to go boom. It's going to start rotating here. It's going to give you a little spinny wheel. It's going to give me a little pop-up here for some reason that decided to block it, but we don't want to do that. We want to go ahead and do it. Now, that room, see how it says go to transaction now? It no longer says start a transaction. The room in Docusign has been created. To view that room, and I'm going to slow down and say this one very carefully. This is a rule. With the exception of being in panic mode and you need to go to Docusign to do something, with the exception of being, oh my God, I gotta. You should always access the Docusign room for a given transaction from this button. Okay? What that means is when you click this go to transaction button, you are guaranteed to go to the specific Docusign room, specifically to the Documents tab of the newly selected or created room. This saves you tons of times because if you had to go to this room and you were in a hurry and you had to get there from someplace else, you got to go 3 or 4 steps to get there. So this gives you a quick access directly to the signing process in this room. Okay, quick question. How many of you have been with us for a while And remember this little thing that would pop up on some of these thumbnail documents that would be the word sample. Does anybody remember those? The word sample would come across the documents here? No? Well, it's a good thing you don't, because for a while there, Docusign had a rule, and I'm just going to kind of tell you, we don't have to worry about it, but it had a rule that if nothing was on a form, it would print the word sample because it was considered a blank form. And it was a pain in the butt to get around. Well, they've done away with it because so many people complained about it. So you're never going to have to worry about the word sample across your documents anymore. The good news is that we also did everything right in Command. And check out what happens if I go to, let's go with the property disclosure form here. I'm just going to click on it. I'm not going to, we didn't do anything in Docusign yet. We just opened the room that we just created. And looking at one of the forms that was preloaded, Jackie Astuto is on the form. John Morgan is on the form. The address is on the form. All of the details that we talked about that are in this case applicable to this form is there. It's already preloaded. There's that address again on page 2. All the stuff that we need for this document that this document needs is filled out already. And that's because we did everything in Command. By doing this every time, no matter what document it is, and no matter what information it requires, if that information is already in Command, then that means it's already on the Details tab of Docusign's room. And look at this. Here's the Details tab of this room. There is the MLS number. There's Seller 1's information. There is the address information, the year built from the MLS, the MLS details for the listing, the price, all of that stuff, the Seller 2, all of it. So if any document that we bring into the room requires any of this information, it will auto-populate. That's big, because I was talking with an agent just over the past couple of days who complained to me and said, I get really tired of having to fill out Docusign forms. I want to go to .loop where it does it automatically. And I said, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but .loop is also not going to fill this out if that information isn't being sent over to it. So you're not going to gain anything by getting frustrated that this isn't doing what it's doing. And once I explained to this person how this works, they were like, oh, so if I just do it here, it takes care of all that extra work for me down the line. Yes, yes, yes. So now let's look at this. I'll go back to the Documents tab here, and we have, in this case, 6 documents. As we saw in our checklist, 6 documents have loaded up. And here's where I got to change my terminology a little bit, because I've been using the word documents. And it's actually an incorrect description. It's easy to just use that to understand that we're looking at something that looks like a document. But these are not documents. These are fillable forms. They are Docusign fillable forms. And what that means is, and when I clicked on that property disclosure and I loaded it up for you, I'm clicking it again here, you can see that as it loads, it'll pop up and show you the address, and then the rest of the form loads in the background. It's like a little bit of a delay there. The fields that are editable, that are fillable on this form, you as the agent can change. So let's say, for example, we've got John Morgan in our database, but he actually goes by Johnny. That means that we entered it incorrectly in our database, but we can actually modify that here. We can click in here and you can see I could change the name of the city. I can change the zip code. I can change this information. Now, hopefully you won't have to, because if you've kept your database up to date, you've got the right information here. But these fillable fields are just that. They're for you to fill out. But notice that because this is a property disclosure residential form, right underneath the name of this form, it says to be completed by seller. I hope that I never hear from any of you wonderful agents Robert, I'm having trouble filling out the information on the property disclosure form. When I'm in the form itself, I can't click on anything here for the type of system, for the water supply, or for the pumps. I can't click on this. How do I fill this out? And me not being an agent and also not a broker, I just point you to the top of the page and say you can't because you're not supposed to. It says to be completed by seller. Anything that you can fill out has a field. So there you go. If there's something that you need to fill out on this document that is fillable by the agent, the fields will be editable. I guarantee you. If you're not supposed to fill it out, if the recipient is supposed to fill it out, then they will fill it out. And we're going to use this document form in a moment to show you what it looks like on the receiving end so that you understand how those appear to the end user. But for now, know this. If there is a field in the form section, you can fill it out. If you're not able to fill it out, it generally means you're not supposed to. It doesn't mean you can't. And I'm going to leave that on the table. Just going to let that sit there. You're not supposed to, but it doesn't mean you can't. And I'm going to leave that there. All right. Because in one of the classes, when I go later on in Docusign, I show you how to put things on the forms where you typically can't touch. Nobody tell the broker that I said that. Okay. So now, this being the intro to Docusign, we're going to take a real quick tour through how we take this document and get it signed. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of detail on this because remember, this is the intro. We're going to go in much more detail. We have the next class next week is all about forms. And that one is going to be going into each one of these forms and talking about what we can and can't do and all the tools. But for today, I want you to see the process so you see it go all the way back to command. So here it is. We're going to do one form. We're going to do the property disclosure form. And because it has a lot of form fields on it, some we can fill out and some that the client fills out, and that we have two names on it, this is a good example to show you how the process works. So what I did was I put a checkbox in the upper left-hand corner of that document form in the documents window here. And when I did that, a little toolbar of icons popped up right here across the top middle. And that little toolbar shows me that I can copy, I can move, I can email, I can create an envelope, I can download it, I can archive it, and I can delete it. That little menu of things that you can do is also available if you right-click any document in the list. So when I right-click, I get an extra few, as a matter of fact. I get a rename, edit, split, move, copy, email, fax, download, print, create envelope, archive, and delete. So either way, in this case, I'm going to be doing the create envelope. So it doesn't matter which way we do it. And for this example, I'm only going to use one form, but this applies to whether you do one form or 10 forms. Okay, so keep that in mind. So I'm going to use the create envelope, and it's going to create an envelope with one form in it, and we're going to walk the process. Okay, so what we get is we get an envelope details section. Do you remember those old movies that showed, old office buildings where people were working like crazy on typewriters and desks, and they'd have these carts going up and down the aisles, the mail carts, where somebody would pick up tubes and envelopes and boxes and take them down to the mail room? Well, in those days, people had to label the envelope so the mailroom knew who the envelope was going to or coming from. That's what this envelope name is for. This is not for the recipient. This is for you to know what's in the envelope. And so in this case here, it's the property disclosure. So I'm going to say that the envelope name is property disclosure form for Jackie Astuto. So I put a name in here that's for me. Has nothing, the client's never going to see this. It's because when I have 15 different envelopes, I want to be able to know what's inside of these things so that I can work with them. And we'll see later on how these envelopes line up. The envelope already includes the document that we requested. So it's put one document into our little manila envelope, and it's showing you here that this is the property disclosure. And you can click on view to view it. Side note, you cannot edit this document from the envelope. You think about it. You shoved it in the envelope. It's in the envelope right now. You can't edit it. You would have to take it back out of the envelope and edit it. So when you click on view here, none of those fields that we talked about a minute ago, there's that Jackie Studio, none of that. You can't touch it. It's in the envelope. So all you're doing is verifying at this point. Okay. If we wanted to add additional, we could add additional room docs, or we can use room templates and so forth. Not going to get into the details of that now. Now comes the most important part. I mentioned about a dozen times, signer 1 is Jackie Astudo. She's the primary. Signer 2 is John Morgan. He's the secondary or the co-seller of this home. We now need to add those people to the envelope to sign it. But in the sense that I just told you who the people are and what they do, those are called pre-tagged roles. A pre-tagged role only works on forms. It does not work on PDFs. It doesn't work on flat documents. We talked about this fillable form thing. A pre-tagged role takes the name of a person and matches them up with the slots on the document for the role that we assign. Jackie Astudo is seller 1. So when we match the pre-tagged role of Jackie Astudo to seller 1 on the document, it knows where she's supposed to sign. So we'll click on pre-tagged roles. And it says, tell me who is seller 1 for this document. Well, that is Jackie Astudo. Great. Tell me, is there or who is seller 2? Now remember, this only applies if there is a seller 2, and I do have a seller 2, and seller 2 is John Morgan. Now also, is there any buyer information that you have? No, there's no buyer information on this for this particular one, so we don't have either of those, so we don't need to worry about it. And it appears to me that as the agent, I do not need to sign it, because as the pre-tagged roles go, this clearly states that there are no agent signatures required on this document. Otherwise, we would have to define who's the agent. So here's the cool thing about this. Seller 1, Jackie Astudo, seller 2, John Morgan. We'll go ahead and hit add selected. And when we do that, it's going to take a moment and give it a moment to load up those recipients in this section here. It's actually expanded a little bit, and we now see seller 1, Jackie Astudo, and seller 2, John Morgan. Hey, Robert, what happens when both sellers are sharing an email address? What happens if it's the same email address? How do I get them both to sign it independently? Make sure that you add both of them as we just did. Now, in my case, John Morgan has a separate email address, and that means he has his own email account. But if he did not, as long as the seller 2 slot has his name on it, we can change the email of seller 2 to be the same as seller 1, but 2 separate emails are going to go out. One is going to be addressed to Jackie Astudo. Hi, Jackie, please sign this in seller 1's position. Now, either simultaneously or sequentially, we can send out the second email and it will say, hi, John Morgan, please sign this document in these spaces. So it doesn't matter that it's the same email address. As long as we have the correct names for the positions here, they'll receive the 2 emails that they need and they'll be good to go. When will they receive them, Robert? Will they receive them at the same time? Will they receive them one after the other? Will one have to sign it and then later on the second one? All very good questions. And it all comes down to the numbers to the left of where you've added the people. In the case of what you see here with them both saying number 1, this email is going to go out what we call shotgun. Boom. Both people are going to get it simultaneously. Whoever opens first can sign. It doesn't matter whether it's John or Jackie. So it's going to go out simultaneously. What is important to note about that simultaneously is John Morgan only needs to sign in seller number 2's position, because very early in this conversation, I told you that Jackie Astuto is seller 1, which means she's the responsible party for all the checkboxes, all the fill-ins and everything. So she's the one who's going to have to fill out all the details, and John is just signing an agreement. Now, if that's not the case, you would have to put John Morgan in the seller 1 position because that's the primary role. And then you could put Jackie in the second position. So it matters to the point that when you talk to your client, who is going to take the responsibility of filling it out, and the other one is just going to sign an agreement. So make that decision before you do this, and we could change it now. We can delete these and swap them around. But for right now, they're both going to receive this document simultaneous, but they each have different roles. So down at the very bottom of this page, we have a message to all recipients, which is the email subject, which is defaulting to Please DocuSign. Little story here. When I bought my most recent house, the one I'm in now, I used an agent who was not a KW agent, and they sent me probably 24 different requests for signatures through DocuSign. And they never changed the email subject for any of the 24 emails they sent me. This, in my folder, said, please DocuSign, please DocuSign, please DocuSign 12 times. They weren't all on the same day. They weren't all at the same time. And when that agent said to me, can you check to see if the brokerage relationship form is signed? I had to go through 12 envelopes because they didn't label it for me so that I knew what was in each of the emails that they sent me. It kind of ticked me off. Don't be that person. Use the message to recipients down here and say, please sign this property disclosure form and return. Put something in there. I'm using my own language here just to quickly make something up. But now, if I am the recipient, I can look through all my dozen emails and say, they said to get to the property disclosure form. Ah, there it is. That's the email that has the property disclosure form. Be kind. Help your people out. You can enter a message down here as well. Now we're going to click next because the envelope is ready to go. Now this is where all of the work that we've done pays off. So it's going to load up like a preview window and an opportunity for us to make some changes or manipulations. So here it is. And if you haven't seen this for the first time, what this is the form fields that are going to be filled out by all parties on this document. This is on the center of the screen is the master document with all the spaces and all the document checkboxes and circles and everything. On the right-hand side is a little navigation, which we can go from page to page to page. Every one of these little pages has little sticky tabs, just like you would put on a real piece of paper that shows you there's a sign here element to that page. If there's a page that doesn't have one of those little sticky things, that means that there's no signature or no interaction required, just maybe a page of information. So you can move between each of these pages by clicking them on the right-hand side and go through. Now on the left-hand side, at the top of the screen, there's going to be a list of the people who are required to sign this document, and they're going to be on a drop-down. The top option will always be seller 1. The next one will be, in this case, seller 2. If there are more names here, they'll be listed here as well. You can switch between viewing the fields and options for that particular signer by changing the drop-down to the name of the person in question. So like right now, I just switched to John Morgan. Now, if I go back up to the first page of the document here, there's only one spot for the blue signature. John Morgan only needs to sign. He is seller 2. Jackie's going to have to fill all this out. John Morgan in his email will not have access to any of these yellow boxes. He will only have access to this, which is why we need to designate the primary, because it does not matter who. It might matter to them, but it doesn't matter in terms of the document who's who, because the primary will fill it out and the secondary will be the signature. So knowing that, we can see everywhere that the first person is supposed to fill out and sign, and then we're the second person. All we're doing on this page right now is verifying that this is not only the document we want, but we're also verifying all the spots that have been pre-filled. Here's that 123 Main Street. And also that the signature spots represent the two people that we wanted. So we're just double checking the work of DocuSign here. And there's a lot of stuff on here, right? So this one is good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and send this. So these two emails that I've used for these two clients, both of those emails are actually real. So what that means is I can now show you, and I'm going to go into Jackie's email. So I've got an account for Jackie Astuto here, and here it is. This is, and those of you on Zoom are not seeing it, so let me switch to show you this. Here is Jackie's email. So my little account here is designed so that I can do this demonstration for you. So it says here, Dear Jackie Astuto, please sign the NHRR property disclosure form. And in the subject line, please sign this property disclosure form return. That's what I was talking about earlier. All right. So then I can click on review document, and it's going to open up for their purposes, Jackie's signature process. Jackie will click I agree, and then she will click continue. Now, in the interest of time, I am not going to go through and fill out every one of these boxes because this is a very large form. So as I go through here though, I want you to notice that Jackie, as the primary, has access to all of the fields. And you can see me just putting some data in here. She will need to initial, and you don't even see where John is supposed to initial. She'll need to initial this, adopt it and sign it, and go through. Now, I'm not going to do all the optionals. I'm just going to go ahead and sign it. And there we go. There we go. And now I'm going to finish Jackie. The dialog box that's going to pop up here, if it ever pops up, there it is. For you as the agent, you should know this. This dialog at the very end of the signing process is a capture screen. And what it's designed to do is it's designed to capture Jackie Astuto's information to create a DocuSign account for her. This is DocuSign stepping on your turf, trying to collect data. If that customer of yours is comfortable, they can create a DocuSign account and click submit. A lot of people think that they have to do that in order to submit the document. That's not true. You can bypass this by telling your client to click no thanks, and then that's done. Additionally, you as the agent should know this. At the top of this little dialog box, there's two buttons. One is a download option so that your client can download a PDF of what they just signed, and they can also click the print button and print what they've just signed. Now, in either of those cases, they're going to get a follow-up email that's going to have a copy of the document that they can download and that they can print. But if they want a copy of it before they submit it, if some people get kind of wigged out, oh, I want to make sure that the copy that I submitted is the copy you received. This is a way for them to do that. They can print it out or save it in the state that it's in right now, and then you're good to go. And let me explain what that means by the state that they're in right now. One person has signed the document. If Jackie downloads this document right now, John's signature will not be on it because John's signature won't come through until the document is completely signed. So in this case, Jackie's going to get half of a document. Okay, just to keep that in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and click no thanks on this. It's done. It's finished. And I can actually close out that screen and get rid of Jackie's email, and we're done. So now let's go back to DocuSign, and we're going to take a look here, and you'll see that DocuSign in my account has taken me backward to the envelope section. And we have in our envelope section, I'll switch it over to the icon so you can see it. It says waiting for others. Now this waiting for others means that somebody else needs to sign. If I refresh this right now, refresh the page, it's taken a couple seconds, it still says waiting for others. I'm going to click on that and open it up, and it says Seller 1, Jackie, has in fact signed the document. There's a checkbox next to her. We're waiting for John Morgan. So John has not signed this. You guys ready? I'm going to have John sign it. So I'm going to select John's mail account, and we're going to kill this. We're going to go to John's Gmail, and wouldn't you know it, there is the form for John just like it was for Jackie, with the exception of he has a lot less work to do. So we'll click on the start here, and John's, when he goes through, is just the initials. And notice that John's fields, none of these fields are lit up. He can't do it. We knew that. So we'll initial each of the pages all the way down through, sign it, boom. I think I'm done, right? Yeah. And finish. I did that. Didn't I? Oh, I see what I'm doing. I keep on skipping what I'm supposed to do. God, I'm an idiot. There we go. Can't even sign my own document. John gets the same thing. We'll hit no thanks, and we'll come back, and it's going to say, good, you're done, John. Have a great day. So I'm going to come back over to Docusign, and we're going to wrap it up by showing you that after a few seconds, when I refresh this page, it's going to show that John has signed, survey said, 2 signatures. We can now, if we're looking in here, we can close the envelope and check it out. The envelope is now green and it says completed. And in the documents area, we now have 2 new documents. We have a PDF that is the certification document from Docusign, and we have a green PDF that is the signed copy. It's the signed copy that's going to go back to command. And I'll close this lesson out by showing you how you take a document that's in Docusign and bring it back to command. Simply, you go to command. And in command, I'll refresh this page here so that it relooks, because normally you're not doing these things literally this sequential. You'll come back later on that day or tomorrow. And you're going to go to the details. I'm sorry, you're going to go to the documents tab. And you're going to see here where we have that go to transaction button. Right below it, it says attach files from Docusign or your computer, but in this case, Docusign. But you can't seem to select the folder. You can't seem to get the document, right? It doesn't let you click on select. Well, that's because we need to define for Docusign where in Docusign those documents are, and they're in the room documents folder. When we do that, we can see here that the room doc lights up, and we can now go find the slot for the property disclosure and click on select. And what we're looking for is not the certification for the property disclosure, but we're looking for the signed property disclosure. And that loads into command. When we do it, we can actually view it by clicking on the link, and it will show us the signed copy. There's the signatures down at the bottom. If we go all the way down to the bottom, we're going to see their signature parts with the dates. A lot of stuff that I've covered here. And it's a basic class just so that you can see what's going on and the general flow. I left out a ton of stuff inside of Docusign, mainly because I just wanted you to see the general flow. You're always going to encounter little things that are going to be unique to a situation. Trusts are always a fun one. So in the sense of getting the basics for Docusign, how do you guys feel? Good deal. All right. So going forward, remember that you can always go to our Kw Clm Training portal. And when you log in to the training portal, you can, let's see what we do this guy here. When you go in here, you're going to see, I'll switch it over so that you can see it as a learner. You're going to see a bunch of different classes. One of the classes that's in here is the Docusign Workshops. And essentially what we've covered here today it's a different set of videos. This is going to walk you through a more detailed version of what we've covered here. So the Docusign Workshop is in there. If you have not got if you don't have an account here at kwclmtraining.com, just go to Kw Clm Training, and in the upper right-hand corner, click on sign up, use your KW email, and create an account to get in, and you'll have access to all of that. In addition, you'll notice that on this front page, before you even sign up, The Tech Tuesdays are listed down about halfway down the page with links to the trainings. So all of the stuff that we're doing live, you can go to KW Clm Training and link to those classes, this class, and join, as well as YouTube. And you don't even have to sign into the account to get to those. Okay, any questions that you have for me? Good, good. All right, nobody unmuted. All right, so I'm going to let you guys go.
Robert,
Yes.
I got a fast question. Can you just go over how to get to that KWCLM training? I've never accessed it.
Yeah, kwclmtraining.com.
Oh, okay. Pretty simple.
Pretty simple. So it's kwclmtraining.com, and then just click sign up and use your KW email. And by the way, it will send you a verification email before you can get in. So just be sure to check your email after you've signed up. And when you click that link, it'll take you in.
Thank you so very much.
All right. You're very welcome. All right, you guys, at 1 o'clock today, we've got the Command 101. And because we are starting the month over, it's now February. Welcome to February, everyone. That is going to be an overview of Command, talking about all the different applications that are in there, and give you guys a great idea of what it looks like. So if you are a new agent, feel free to attend that one. That's a lot of fun because I show you around, and there's not a lot of like training stuff. It's just a general like, hey, what is this thing? What does it do? So we'll see you then. And I hope you guys have a good morning until then. So literally an hour from now, I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Awesome. Thanks, Robert.
Can
Bye.
I ask you a question after everybody's?
Sure.
Can I
Yeah.
ask you a quick question? I went through the offers and commissions